everybody, my name is Pritika Ghosh and I'll be reading the story The Imposter. We usually know that identical twins love each other a lot, but Rohit and Mohit's case was different. The two could not stand each other. They hated each other so much that the moment Mohit got a job, he moved out and never kept in touch with his father or brother. They had not seen each other for 14 years. It was already 9:30 that night and Rohit had not returned from his office. Mr. Kapoor, the father, was very worried because Rohit was not picking up the phone. So Mr. Kapoor decided to call his office. He was informed that Rohit had left the office at 10 in the morning and had not returned since. Mr. Kapoor started to panic and decided to call his friend Mr. Rajiv Sinha. Mr. Sinha was a retired police officer who is now a detective. Mr. Sinha advised Mr. Kapoor to calm down and wait for Rohit the whole night. And if he didn't come till the morning, they both will go to the police together to lodge an FIR. Mr. Kapoor and Mr. Sinha were about to leave the Kapoor mansion in the morning when they saw a man in the front yard. It was Rohit. Mr. Kapoor ran up to him and asked him where he was all night and he told Mr. Kapoor that he was with his friend Mohan. He also said that he had told Mr. Kapoor about this meetup with Mohan earlier. After almost 2 to 3 months later, Mr. Sinha received a letter from Mr. Kapoor. Mr. Sinha actually was very surprised because Mr. Kapoor lived just 3 blocks away from his house, and also nobody writes letters these days, not even old people. He could have just called. Anyway, he decided to read the letter. The letter said, "Rajiv, I know you must be very surprised to receive this letter. I am writing to you to talk about Rohit. He's acting very differently. He forgot how to sign his own name, so the bank returned his check. He seems worried all the time and does not sleep well at night. Everybody knows that Rohit is an excellent driver, but yesterday he almost hit a pedestrian, and it was his own fault. I mean, how can a guy be so bad at driving the same car he has driven his whole life? I am really worried about Rohit's strange behavior and wonder what is wrong with him. Please come to my house as soon as you get this letter." Mr. Sinha did not go to meet Mr. Kapoor that day, but he did go to Rohit's office and tried to find out about this guy named Mohan. And the information that he got shocked him. He found out that Rohit does not have a friend named Mohan. But why would he lie about being with a friend? He knew something was wrong with Rohit. He primarily thought that he must have been to a party that he didn't want his father to know about. The next day, Mr. Sinha went to meet Mr. Kapoor, and after hearing all about Rohit's strange behavior, Mr. Sinha assured Mr. Kapoor that he would talk to Mr. Rohit and find out whether anything is bothering him. So, on Sunday, Mr. Sinha went to meet Rohit in his room. Two things struck him strange. First, he did not receive a warm welcome from Rohit, and that was crazy because when someone that you know visits you, an average normal person wishes the person in a warm manner, even if they don't like the person. Secondly, Rohit was not only evading all his questions, but also seemed irritated at his presence. The look on his face seemed very familiar to Mr. Sinha, but it reminded him of someone else. He could not figure out who. After that, Mr. Sinha tried to talk to him every day, but he would just not talk to him or even try to make conversation. Sometimes he would completely ignore him. After a while, Mr. Sinha stopped talking to him, but started to spy on him. He tried to find out something about him that was suspicious, but couldn't. One day, Mr. Sinha was reminiscing old days, looking at the pictures in his old album when he came across a picture of Rohit, Mohit and his friends. Mohit had a plaster on his wrist, but he couldn't remember why he had a plaster. So he called his daughter and asked her why Mohit had a plaster. She told him that when they were kids, while playing on the terrace, Mohit fell off the terrace and injured himself in the wrist. He had to suffer for 2 weeks. One day in the morning, when Rohit was leaving for work, he decided to wave to Mr. Sinha, who was standing in the garden. Suddenly, Mr. Sinha's eyes fell on Rohit's wrist. A little scar was peeping from behind his belt of his wristwatch. His experienced eyes told him that the scar was an old one, and he never remembered Rohit having a scar like that. He went back to his conversation with his daughter. His memory jolted back 20 years ago when the incident took place. Everything became crystal clear. He realized that the person in front of him, the person who stayed with Mr. Kapoor all this time, was not Rohit, but Mohit. He couldn't believe his eyes. So many questions were in his mind. He wanted to know if Mohit was here all this while, then where was Rohit? And why was he hiding? He did not want to jump into conclusions quickly, so he decided not to tell Mr. Kapoor right away. He waited for Mohit to come home. And when he did, Mr. Sinha spoke to him. While talking to him, he got a look at his wrist. Mr. Sinha was now 100% sure that it was in fact Mohit. He told Mr. Kapoor everything the next day and called the nearest police station. He asked them to arrest the so-called Rohit because he was an imposter. After Rohit was arrested and interrogated thoroughly, he confessed that he was not Rohit but actually Mohit. After losing his job and all his money, he had no place to go. Mohit planned to kidnap Rohit, finish him off, and take his place. Mohit was sentenced life imprisonment for murdering his brother, and Mr. Kapoor was left all alone mourning for his son.